The next expansion to World of Warcraft, Legion, is coming. Its announcement revealed a fair few details and features, but much remains unanswered. Here are my most pressing questions about Legion in no particular order, covering both concerns and things that could potentially be fantastic. Number 15. Will there be zone variation? So far, it would appear that we have a similar number of zones to what was in Warlords of Draenor, and this would suggest a linear questing with little choice for alts. This makes me a bit sad on the surface. One way that it could be better is having some sort of way to make zones different with alts. Perhaps one or two of the zones could be particularly large, containing enough content so that multiple repeats can be done without actually encountering the same quest flow. Perhaps our characters could make choices during the leveling, which would have a significant effect on how we progress through the entire zone. Stuff like that would help to keep the quest flow different, but I still do miss the idea of having significantly different zones to go through from an aesthetic point of view. Number 14. Will there be a return to the Mists of Pandaria patch model, where we see interim patches that add minor bits of world and story content? Back in MoP we had the launch, then a small patch, then a large patch, then another small patch, and then finally 5.4. When you look at the game's subscriber numbers, it would suggest that this rather agile approach kept people subscribed, and it did a good job of retaining the people who didn't bounce off 5.0. Warlords of Draenor had just the one major patch, and its minor patch was in fact so minor that even Blizzard have said that they sort of mismarketed the thing. I'm curious to see what way they go with for Legion, and I definitely hope they opt for the first option. Number 13. Will there be a weekly cap on artifact experience? Artifact experience is what we're going to be using to unlock new talents on our artifact weapons. I'd like to know if this is going to be capped, as that's going to have a massive impact on how we actually play the game. I'm not 100% sure what I think is best. A cap does make it more manageable, and it also removes the social pressure to do a ludicrous amount of stuff in a given day or week. But on the other hand, many players don't enjoy caps, and sometimes caps that are too short feel quite restrictive. We'll need to properly see how this system is specifically before we actually know what the best way to go is. Number 12. Will the artifact weapon quests differ for each spec, and how long will they last? I assume that since we get a different weapon for each spec, most specs are going to have a different quest to do for each weapon. Now on top of that, I would like to see these quests actually be properly long. Blizzard have already said they won't be on the scale of the Green Fire quest, but I think there could be a good amount of content here, especially if, once we get to max level, there is further content and quests to do with our artifact weapons. Number 11. How will gear earned from PvP stack up to gear that is earned in PvE? They intend to remove PvP-specific gear, but you will apparently still be able to get gear from PvP. Do bear in mind that a well-geared character is supposed to be about 7% stronger than a fresh ding in Legion, so it probably won't really matter to a ginormous degree anyway. Still, it will be very interesting to see how they strike a balance between the two. PvPers probably should not have to do raids and the like in order to get viable gear to do world content, so there probably will have to be some sort of very basic gear that they can get, which is a stepping point over to, say, the dungeons and the raids if they wanted to do that. Number 10. Will we see a large amount of time-gated profession mechanics? We have had a daily crafting cooldown in the game for quite a while, but Warlords of Draenor put in more of those aspects to the profession system. I'd like to know how flexible they intend crafting to be in Legion. Apparently the profession team is at its largest yet, and that really does give me a lot of hope for the professions in this expansion. Number 9. How long and frequent will champion missions be, and what kind of rewards will they have? The Warlords of Draenor follower system offered powerful rewards, and it had relatively short missions. This led to people sticking around their mission tables quite a bit. The shipyard had longer missions with less rewards, but that didn't really pan out too great either. The champion missions will apparently drive bits of world content, which is certainly a nice change, but I would like to know how much the game will be telling us to head back to our order hall in order to interact with whatever sort of mission table they have. Rewards are important as well, and I hope there aren't that many powerful, air quotes, mandatory things, and that perhaps the order hall rewards would be more based around the cosmetics of your class. Number 8. Will we see a shift towards less gear being given out and more cosmetic rewards being given out in their place? Warlords of Draenor gave out far too much gear. I mean, it was a bit silly. With Legion, they already seem to be really into the idea of class identity and customizing our characters. I'd be very keen to see whether they prune down the number of ways that we get bits of gear in terms of stats, and then emphasize unlocking new class accessories, transmog sets, and artifact options. I would really enjoy world content that feels optional because I'm actually driven out of personal desire to do content rather than feeling obliged to do it, or else I'm going to miss out in some terrible way. Number 7. Are there going to be choices with the artifact weapon talents? So far, it looks like the artifact talent trees will eventually be 100% completed. That could change, and with it being this early on, we don't know for sure. I saw this as an opportunity to essentially have a slightly more manageable version of the older style of talent tree in the game. That is something that a lot of players really seem to like, and I've got to think that allowing the thing to be 100% completed is somewhat going against the idea of it actually being a talent tree. Number 6. Will class accessories make it into this expansion at launch? They teased class accessories back in the Warlords of Draenor pre-alpha period. Now, the last time I poked art director Chris Robinson, he said that they're definitely more of a future thing. Now, given all their talk about class identity, I think Legion is the ideal time to add these accessories to the game as a new reward type. Number 5. Is it intended to add more dungeons in content patches? It was great to see lead designer Ian Hazzikostas speak about how they did a disservice to dungeons in recent times. He followed that up by announcing 9 dungeons. So A, will we get more than 9 at launch, and B, will we see some new ones in patches? 9 is technically 2 more than Warlords of Draenor, since 1 was a revamp, and that's definitely good, but will we have more than that? Number 4. Is the team adverse to the idea of winged dungeons? I've already made my thoughts clear on this topic. Gameplay is what really makes content feel fresh, and I think that having 2 or 3 dungeons share the same tile set is a great way to deliver a larger body of dungeon content without burning up excessive artist time. They seem to be just against the idea as of late though. So, are they? I think it would be nice to know. Number 3. Will we see an expansion of the Timewalking system? Timewalking feels very shoved in Warlords of Draenor. There's not a great deal to it, though the addition of currencies in 6.2.2 is a welcome addition. I would first like to see if they have any plans for dungeons. Raids can perhaps wait for a bit. Also, if they are going to be putting a currency on these, then I think it would make sense to expand the system out and take it off the weekend bonus system. By putting in a deterministic reward, you're saying to players, well, you go out, do this, do enough of them, you'll definitely get a reward. But by then having a deterministic reward system shoved into a weekend-only event, it just seems to be very self-defeating, so hopefully they work that out. I would also like to see more boss mechanics, or at least them tweak bosses on a boss-by-boss basis to make them more interesting, and perhaps add in some more randomized encounters to Timewalk, such that multiple runs can actually be slightly different in a way. Number 2. Will relics have different effects? So, our artifact weapons have got these things called relic slots. We know that these slots are going to modify the statistics of our weapons. I would love to know if we will get any other effects that could modify our weapons in a more tangible way than a slight numbers increase. It could be very interesting, but I can also see how it could be a nightmare to balance, in comparison to the past system of having a few weapons of different power levels dropping from raids. Number 1. Will there be a return to the older style of optional reputation content? You all know that I really like the idea of having a few reps that blended in a unique story with a unique mount as a reward or something like that. Now, they would always give me something to do in between raids or even a few months after the final patch came out and there wasn't a great deal of stuff to do. So seeing the older style of reps would be great, and it would certainly bulk out the endgame world content. So there you have it. We'll find out the specifics eventually, probably before BlizzCon, based on some rather recent developer comments. Still, it's early days, and we'll find everything out in good time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.